I'll be the first person to tell you when you're good, and I'll be the first person to tell you when you're bad. But you'll never not know where you stand.
Praise matters.
Praise absolutely matters. People thrive on praise. I don't care how hard somebody thinks they are. Everybody has some variation of praise that they feed off of.
You can't connect the dots going forward.
We're gonna have to do things that like would not happen organically.
Drop Chappie off in the woods.
Yeah,
Survive.
I hope you make it back, buddy.
I think you're dad.
Why does no news have to be good news?
Had you had a normal pregnancy, delivery, all the things.
My mind jumped to effectively the worst case scenario, which is you're gonna have to make a choice.
Don't shield your people from hardship.
Maybe the fastest way to correct this is to let them fail.
That was good.
Were you gonna cry there at the end? You look like you're gonna cry.
No, I was trying not to make a joke.
Is that your not make a joke face? You look like you're gonna cry.
Most of you know Jason Fernandez as the sharpest mind in the room, the no BS coach, the guy who will tell it to you straight. But today, I want you to meet the guy behind all that. The one who had to walk without a map, screw things up, lead people through chaos, and keep walking even when nobody noticed. Because that guy, he's the reason Best Hour exists. And this conversation might just change how you see yourself too. You spoke in Nashville all about your dad being your coach. And you said, you've been coached by my dad even if you didn't know it. You talk about your dad as quite the influence on you. Walk us into that moment when you realized your ripple wasn't actually your own.
I think most of us don't realize how much influence we have throughout our lives from coaches, parents, teachers, random passersby. Like there's so much in this world that I think we never take the time to take stock in to figure out, where did I learn this behavior from? Like, why am I feeling this way? What led me to this belief in order to be the person that I am currently today? I think becoming a parent changes many things. And I was talking about this the other day, that on my life's timeline, that, on January 5th, 2014 is where there's a stark change in trajectory. And that was a moment of very harsh introspection about my life and what I wanted to do and why I was the way that I was and why I think the way that I do. And yeah, I also would say, like, I think I probably hit the parental jackpot. I have a good balance of parents with regard to their demeanor. I think there's tremendous benefit in being the son of an immigrant. My mom is the queen of challenging conversations, and my dad's a no-nonsense, to the point person, coach. But both of those people, very fortunate to pass down to me what I think is they both have very high empathy. They're both of my parents I would describe as very emotionally intelligent.
Who do you think you're more like?
I'm a pretty good split between both of my parents.
I think you're your dad.
Why?
Well, you say
this is probably because you don't know my mom.
Well, I don't know either very well. I know your dad through this presentation, and I've interacted a handful of times. But I think you are the no-nonsense coach, just not on the basketball floor.
For sure. I've learned a lot of that, how to lead, how to not lead, very much influenced from the early age of being, a 5-year-old in a locker room. I spent the vast majority of my adolescence, from probably 5 years old all the way up through graduating college, in a locker room of some sorts, playing sports, whether it was a team that I was on or it was a team that my dad was coaching or a team that he was part of. That was very influential for me. But my mom, I get the genetic part of the default mode of fight that mom? I came out of the womb with. That is my mom. My mom is very, very quick. This is why my mom and I butt heads a lot, because we're very similar with regard to our hard-headedness and our very quick nature to be, combative is not the right word, just we both enjoy a good bout of verbal judo.
Do you think, you mentioned January 5th, that's Logan's birthday.
It is.
Do you think, for those that don't know, she was very premature, right? So would that have been such an influential day had you had a normal or typical pregnancy, delivery, all the things? I know, like that moment where you had to make a decision, etc. Was that more impactful?
Yes. I mean, that's the genesis of my obsession about learning.
Really? Why?
Quick backstory. So the day she was born, she's what's considered a micro preemie, as far as,
So it's small of the small.
meaning micro. I don't remember what the cutoff date is for being micro premature, but she was, normal gestational period for a woman is 40 weeks, right? 40 weeks is full term. She was born at 25 weeks and 2 days, so she was born 15 weeks early.
Right, so almost like half a.
23 is really where you look at viable birth, right? So we're 2 weeks past, like, the scenario where like a baby is has a good odds for survival. And I had gone home that day. We had been at the hospital since the 1st, and I'd stayed at the hospital with Jess, and then my parents had come in, Jess's parents had come down, and it's funny, I was actually telling this story the other day. My mother-in-law said, go home, get some sleep. I get the call about 7:30 in the morning, frantic. The baby's coming, so rush to the hospital. I get there. I don't wish that scene on anybody. It's just pure chaos. There's doctors everywhere, there, because they had put Jess in what's called trendellum. So you're trying to essentially take the mom and put them upside down in order to have gravity help with avoiding early birth. It's essentially like the baby won't fall out. And I remember walking into, there's like a pre-area before the delivery room, and there's the OB there. She's a really short lady. And she said, your wife is bleeding. We don't know where from. We have to deliver the baby. And I still think about this quite a bit, because nobody asked me to make a decision in that moment. Like, it was not prompted to me. She simply delivered information to me about what was happening. And then my mind jumped to effectively the worst case scenario, which is you're going to have to make a choice. And in my mind, I said, if they ask me to choose, I'm going to take my wife. So then you go into the delivery room. It's chaos, dude. You're talking about a very rapidly done C-section. It's loud. There's noises, and I specifically remember, like, when we were going through that, like, I don't think Jess and I like looked away from each other the entire time. Like, we were just locked eyes. So they deliver the baby, and it's quick. So they come over and they say, they show me Logan, and Logan was, she was not the size, really. She was a 1 pound, 12 ounces. So she's not the size of this coffee cup at this point. Like, you could fit a child in your hand, which is terrifying in and of itself. Mm-hmm. And I look over, probably don't process what it is that's happening at this point, and then immediately have to, so it's like hey, we have a baby, and then they have to go to the NICU. So you're in the delivery room, and you have to go to the NICU. So they grab me and they go there, and I'm watching these 2 young physicians who are kind of working on Logan, trying to get a PICC line in her head, which is kind of how they're going to run meds and some other things that they're trying to work on her. And I'm having this wild out-of-body experience where, like, I'm literally looking down on myself in the delivery room, sobbing uncontrollably. And my outer body self is looking at me in the NICU, trying to figure out like why is he so upset? And then I came to the realization that everybody says it, but like, hey, once you have a baby, like your whole life lens changes and you'll like kill people for no reason, stuff like that. So it's a little bit more traumatic in that scenario. And what I was coming to the realization of was that you really have one job as a parent, which is to protect your kids. And unknowingly, on day one of the most important job you'll ever have, I made the wrong decision and I got it wrong. And from there, I thought a lot for a very long time about, okay, if you can get the one and only thing that you need to get right wrong, what else are you wrong about? Like, what else are you naive about? What else do you think you know that you don't know? And I credit how I approach learning to Logan in that sense, because it completely reframed absolutely everything that I do. I never assume that I know. I always want to know more. I always want to learn more. And I have that. I mean, it's a pretty strong anchor. It's like, hey, right when you think you know, remember that one time that you got the one and only thing you needed to get right wrong? Maybe question it again.
I'm going to rely on that from now on when dealing with you. But I like that because one of the things the word you say most often is maybe.
Maybe. Well,
well put.
It's the prompt for me when we all make assumptions, whether we know something, whether that thing is going to happen, whether somebody else is right or wrong. And the reality is, like, we're probably wrong about most things most of the time. And we're all guilty of it. You're like, hey, this is definitely going to happen. Or I know this. Maybe in slightly different circumstances, that assumption is incorrect. Or maybe there's some context to the story that you're not aware of that will completely change your answer in that scenario. And for me, the maybe is just take a beat and really think about it. Maybe that'll work. Maybe it won't. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe none of that is the point.
Mm.
You know. So for me, it's a way to not get out over my skis and to, hey, maybe that'll work. Maybe it won't. Maybe that's not actually the exercise. Right? Like, let me really think about, whether it's firing somebody or hiring somebody, whether it's, do we do a business transaction or not? Maybe it's, do I ask my wife that question now or not? Do I, my kid did that on purpose or they didn't? Maybe not. And then I think it just helps to reframe, to look at things through a different lens and there's an alternative to everything. Just considering what the alternative would be, I think is an interesting way to just slow down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. Don't shield your people from hardship.
Criticism hurts. Even if you're good at receiving it. I would consider myself pretty good at taking criticism. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. But I've also been fortunate to work for and or play for coaches that were very critical, starting with my dad. But even before that, I had coaches that were very critical, but not in a bad way, but just in a way of, one of the things my dad told me early, and I try to live by this, which is, I'll be the first person to tell you when you're good, and I'll be the first person to tell you when you're bad. But you'll never not know where you stand. Mm-hmm. And I think of all the times that I struggled in life, whether it be from a coach or working for somebody, be in the military, in the private sector, a lot of it was due to just not knowing where do I stand here? Like, am I doing a good job? Am I doing a bad job? Are you mad? Are you happy? Do you like this? Do you not like this? Like, what do you want? And I try to do that. You know, if I was having a bad game, like first he'd be like, you sucked. Like he would, there would be no beating around the bush. He'd be like, you sucked tonight. And that was just what it was. But if it was really good, he would be like, you played great. He's like, that was one of the best games you've ever had. And there was micro versions of that. You know, when it was just like mid-game, you know, he's like, you're really blowing it right now. Or, hey, you're doing a great job, like, shoot the ball. Like, don't even think about it. Just literally let it rip. So I like to think of that in the context of being an athlete. Like, what would put that person in the best position to succeed? And it would be you letting them know exactly where they stand right now.
How do you do that in business? It's easy to think about, hey, you did a great job this month, you're doing a bad job. Like in the moment, or for an affiliate owner to their coach, I suppose in class, hey, that was great.
Yeah.
Which would then, someone or your dad saying, you're on fire.
Shoot the ball.
Yeah. Now, it's gonna spiral. Now I'm gonna give more cues. I'm gonna be more energetic.
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but there's some interesting studies about high performing organizations, and they all have two characteristics. One is they have some sort of objective feedback loop, you know, whether it be, you know, evals or whatever. But more importantly than that, they all have high frequency of what they describe as drive-by feedback, meaning that there is a feedback loop that effectively never stops going. And one of the most influential professional experiences of my life, and I would imagine yours is probably the same, is being on seminar staff. There is a never-ending feedback loop with regard to that, with regard to how you do registration, to how you run your groups, to how you do the lecture, to how you show up to the team meetings. Like there's feedback on all of it all the time. It literally never stops. And if you're not used to that environment, it's highly uncomfortable, because most people never get feedback, much less never get critical feedback. And even of the people that do get critical feedback, I would argue the majority of time somebody gets critical feedback, it's in a negative fashion. So to get high frequency feedback from somebody who's not malicious towards you is not only improbable, it's virtually non-existent for most people. So it can become a confusing environment for somebody, because the default response to feedback is probably a visceral reaction. Like, I don't like this person hates me, they're out to get me. But they're not. They're just trying to make you better. But we get in the way of that. And it becomes defensive in nature instead of just understanding it's not about you.
Part of that is the right leader is giving you the, hey, you're on fire.
Well, always, right?
But when I think too many people only get the negative stuff. And even on seminar staff, there's moments where you're like, can I get something?
Anything. I've told you this before, where, you know,
EC,
I had this
right?
long conversation with EC years ago. I said, hey, like, where am I doing? You know, and her response was, you know, hey, no news is good news. And I said, no.
Yeah.
I was like, good news is good news. Why does no news have to be good news? You're missing. If we were to put this in context of coaching athletes, if you never said great job and all you gave were the corrective components of the class, but never followed up with affirming good movement or you know, letting somebody know that they really had great effort or whatever, you'd be missing 50% of the equation.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Praise matters.
yeah, you would be, yeah, praise absolutely matters. People thrive on praise. I don't care how hard somebody thinks they are. Everybody has some variation of praise that they feed off of. I think the flavor of the praise matters. Some people want to know they're doing a good job. Some people just want other people to acknowledge that they see them working hard. They don't want, hey, you did great. They might just want somebody to be like, hey, dude, I really see you working your ass off over there. Like, I think it's super impressive. Like, that's what some people want. Some people want, they want to be told, that they're doing a good job and that they have a lot of room for improvement. It's like, it's never ending, but yeah, most people never get both sides. And I think if you think about just the way that we approach coaching and then just roll that over into how you're talking with your staff, and it doesn't always have to be a formal conversation. It can just be literally like, that was a great class. Like, everybody in there is having a good time. Or, hey, like, I think I told somebody this the other day. Oh, it was Blake she does a lot of the comms and designs. And I said, hey, I just want to let you know, like, it's really cool that you do such a good job with the newsletter. Like, it's on time, it's out, like basically the first or second of every single month, fully populated with all the things in there, like clockwork every single time. And that seems like not a big deal, but how many gyms do you know, or how many times have you seen a newsletter that doesn't go out on time? Like 99% of the time.
Especially when it's not done by the owner.
Correct, right? So it's stuff like that, and people just want to be, everybody wants to be seen.
A little bit of that goes such a long way, you're right? Especially when people aren't expecting it, which they often aren't because they just don't get it.
Well, have you read the book Giftology?
No.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest version, but in the book Giftology, the whole book is about gift giving, but it's really just about acknowledgement and praise. But what they were talking about is simply changing the time delivery for something like a present completely changes the interaction. Yeah. So if you get a birthday present on your birthday, it's expected. So it inherently diminishes the value of the gift. If you get a gift on a random Tuesday that has nothing to do with anything, the same gift given just on a different day has like 10x the return on the relationship, the way it's received, the value that it has to that person, and now even means more to them. It's with the exact same gift to the exact same person, just not in a window of time that's expected, changes it. And the same thing goes for feedback. If they run a huge event and they do a good job, there's some expectation at the end of the event, you will tell them, great job. Yeah. But if you tell them that on a random Wednesday based on how they clean the bathroom, that's different.
Yeah. I'm gonna remember that when I forget Roz's birthday. Hey.
But I gave you that present on that Tuesday, remember?
It should be, Vern said 10 times.
Yeah.
Leadership is about who others need you to be in times of despair. Going back to your dad, when or was there a specific hardship you think he let you go through that shaped you?
Many.
You've talked about the time you called him.
Yeah, that's for sure one.
So for those that you called them what at
when
the Naval Academy?
It was at the prep school. So before my grades were not stellar in high school, nor were they in college. But so I went to prep school, which is an extra year prior to showing up to the Naval Academy. And so
it's like pre-K for adults.
It's like pre-K for adults. So you show up there and you do your kind of boot camp variation. It's called NDOC, and you get one phone call while you're there. And
in this entire time?
You get one phone call during NDOC, which is about, I believe it's a 4-week period.
Wow.
So they don't tell you when the phone call is going to happen. They ripped me out of bed early on like a Saturday morning.
It's like time for your phone call.
Time for your phone call. And I said, okay, you go to a pay phone. So you have to do a collect call.
Back in the
day. And no shit, you got 30 seconds. Not 31, not 29, you got 30 seconds. And I called, and it was the morning, and my family, we used to sleep in a lot on the weekends, so I was like, odds are good that nobody's picking up this phone. I was like, my one phone call is just gonna go to like a voicemail or something. And, my dad picked up the phone and I started rambling about how I wanted to quit and I wanted to leave or whatever. And then the cadre, one of the instructors that was there, just clicked the, imagine a scene where it's just like, click, be like, you're done, hang up the phone, get out of here. And that was it. My dad never spoke. I know it was him because he said hello, but that was it. Like, we never engaged past hello. And he hung up the phone. And my mom said, who was it? I said, it's Jason. She's like, oh my God, how's he doing? He said, he's fine. And just rolled back over and went to sleep. And he knew I was fine. He knew, he was like, hey, he needs to go through this period and he doesn't need to be coddled. Like, this is something he's going to need to sort out on his own. He's going to be fine. And I think they trusted themselves as parents and he trusted himself as a father. He's like, yes, this is going to be hard for him, but I've given them the requisite tools to survive this, which is now seemingly a very laughable scenario to deal with, particularly if you talk about an immigrant who came here from another country, couldn't speak the language, do all that kind of stuff. He's like, I'm sure he had that in the back of his mind, he's like, oh, you're not escaping communism right now? You'll be fine.
You're not on a boat.
It's a good frame, about.
I think every generation to our kids, right?
Yeah.
Like I was telling you, Madison FaceTimed me this morning. I'm like, you're calling Colette last generation and you're FaceTiming me at 4 years old.
Yeah, at 4.
Yeah. Like, you're fine.
You're at home by yourself.
But before we kind of move on to a different topic, we've talked a lot about feedback, and I think you also use the word criticism. How do you distinguish the two, feedback and criticism?
I think they're the same. I guess the distinction would be this: if I was forced to make a distinction between feedback and criticism, I think it would be the word you would use would be determined on the person on the receiving end of it. Because I think inherently criticism has a negative connotation and feedback has a positive connotation to it. And so I think that's about delivery. So I've never done this before, but like if you were going to try to do that, does the person feel like they're being criticized or feel like they've been given feedback in order to develop a little bit?
Then, you could say to someone, "Hey, you look great today."
Right.
And it could be misconstrued as criticism. Why don't I look better than great?
Right. Or are you being serious?
Yeah.
Like, are you being sarcastic?
Or
right
they have some sort of disorder and they immediately internalize it to many other things. Yeah.
But to go back, I think it's really hard. It's much harder as a parent, but it's also really hard as a leader to let people struggle. I would contend that as entrepreneurs, if you are a true entrepreneur, this is one of the hardest things ever to do, is to let somebody else struggle with something that you see as easily solvable.
Mm-hmm.
And
we just talked about it right before we hit record.
Right. And it's like, hey, maybe the fastest way to correct this is to let them fail. Which is painful for you as a leader to be like, I don't feel like going through this right now. But the reality is, like, if I don't let them fail and then we don't quickly recap that to talk about why they failed and how to make it better, the likelihood of repeating this scenario is incredibly high. Versus let them fail, use it as a learning opportunity, and then it's less likely to happen again. And if it does happen again, it's a better version of the fail, whatever it is. It's an evolution of what that might be. But I think sometimes, or sometimes when somebody's going, I think we're really quick to console people.
Yeah.
In certain scenarios, which is just, hey, let that person suffer a little bit. Like listen, I don't want people to suffer unnecessarily, but like sometimes suffering is necessary. Sometimes it's a good thing.
It's for growth, especially.
It's for growth. It's to kind of, particularly in an age of coddling, not just kids but adults.
Well, as you're saying this, it's like parenting.
Right.
All of this.
You know, it's like, let them suffer a little bit, not unnecessarily, not to an extreme degree, but don't be so fast to intervene because they're struggling with something or they're having a hard time with it. Like, if I think about pivotal moments in my life, or like where I learned something that sticks, the reality is almost all of those involve pain.
And pain could be suffering, right? Not physical pain, but
No, most of them are not physical pain.
Right.
Most of them are some sort of emotional or psychological pain.
I think many people would agree with that. You know, the Hormozy says you can't connect the dots going forward.
Right. You can do about. Jess and I have talked about this at length. You know, if you think her parents grew up in pretty hard environment, really hard environment. My dad, that's a tough environment to come from another country. You know, have to go through immigration checkpoints, not speak English.
I can't believe your dad didn't speak English.
Well, no, I mean, in Cuba you speak Spanish.
Yeah, but he is so.
Well, he's
It's
72
been a long
years
time.
old, but yeah, hopefully he picked it up. Yeah, but we talk about it all the time that, you know, and much of that hardship was passed on to us in its own unique ways. But I think about it a lot with regard to my kids, where because they're going to have, and I think this is a good thing, but it does have its downsides to it. It's just like, you want every generation to have a better life, but there's downsides to nothing being hard.
Oh yeah.
And I think I talk about it all the time. I'm like, we're at the stage now in this evolution of our family trees, if you will, where we're probably going to have to manufacture hardship for our kids.
You have to fabricate it at some.
You know, we're gonna have to do things that like would not happen organically.
Drop Chappie off in the woods.
Yeah,
Survive.
I hope you make it back, buddy.
Leave your 4-year-old at home for 30
Good
minutes.
luck. You know, I'm gonna have to do the same thing that my dad did for me. It's like, hey, I got you a job. It's the worst one I could find.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting because when I was fresh out of college, I lived in a really, really like bad area. And my stepmother says she came and left crying, and I didn't know this. And she was like, she didn't want me to live there, but she also wouldn't do anything about it.
Yeah, figure it out.
Yeah. And my mom has a sister, and hopefully their kids aren't watching, but it's like we have very similar, you know, overlap in everything except the way we were college, you know, they were paid for, and then your doctorate and your house and all this. And it was like, once I left at 18, it was kind of like, and the work ethic between us is completely different.
Night and day.
Right. And it's like, in that moment, I was like, why are my parents helping? They don't like me, etc. It's like, oh, I needed that.
Yeah, well, there has to be some variation of kicking the bird out of the nest. Like, at some point, if they're not forced to flap their wings, like, they're never going to fly.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so I think the issue is you have to figure out where to do that as a parent, where to do that as a manager, where to do that as a leader. What point do you kick somebody out of the nest and tell them, you got to figure this out. I'm not helping you. I can't do that for you anymore because I'm ultimately going to be doing you a disservice.
Yeah, the repercussions will last a lifetime.
Of me doing it for you.
Right now.
Yes.
Right. This is, yeah. No, and looking back for me, it's like, oh, that was vital. Because I would have been entitled or not felt like I needed to go crazy and work. I might not have found CrossFit when I was like, I needed to, again, make a change. All these connecting the dot, you're like, oh, thank God that happened.
Wait, listen, you're never going to be tough if you don't have to do hard things. Like, I don't know a single tough person that hasn't had to do an immense amount of hard shit.
Yeah. You say most people carry identities they never chose. When did you decide to rewrite yours?
I think there's two parts to that. One is the identity piece is really it's really hard to get the self-awareness to start to figure that out in my personal experience. But that's me. I don't think it is for everybody, but I think for most people, starting to develop the awareness around the identities that you carry around. I think some identities that you carry are more obvious than others, right? I'm an athlete. That's an obvious identity versus, somebody. Then some of them are more subtle. I think the subtle ones end up being the ones that are most detrimental to us when we're walking around with them. So, I've told the, what if it were easy story, but also the, hey, the killing the dummy identity, right? Like, and again, pain, right? So if you go back to the idea that I was not smart was an identity that was not my choice, looking back on it. And I was not even aware that I had been given that identity at the time. But it carried, if I think about it, I carried that identity for probably 2 decades. I went to the Naval Academy in between prep school, the Naval Academy, and Supply Corps School, which is a follow-on specialty school when you get commissioned to the Navy. I went to 6 academic review boards. Statistically impressive.
These are not like, hey, you're doing great, we want to commend you.
Yeah, they're like, hey, congrats, nobody's ever done this before, but it's not a good thing.
What academic review is you're failing.
Your GPA is poor. And I specifically remember this, and I think there's 2 components to this. I went to the first academic review board, and there was a woman that sat on the review board, and she told me, she said, "You will never graduate this institution." And
you were like, maybe.
We'll find out. But this is where I think some of the sports and the level of, I think, indignation that I was probably born with. We had the old, I don't remember what type of computers it were, but you could do the screensaver where the word kind of bounced around and it had like 3D print. Yeah. So I put that statement on my computer screen.
You'll never graduate?
You will never graduate this institution. And I left it there the entire year. Now, I barely graduated, but I did graduate.
But this was your very first one?
This is one of one. Yeah.
But you went 5 more times.
I went 5 more times.
So was it not working, or were you like just doing the bare minimum?
This is a longer discussion about higher education and being in learning environments that are not conducive to your skill sets. But I think there's pros and cons to all of that. But the school at the Naval Academy is hard, right? Like everybody, it's a liberal arts school, but it's not. I mean, it's an engineering school. So everybody there is going to take 2 semesters of chemistry. You're going to take 2 semesters of physics with algebra. You're going to take up to Calc 3.
That's just your like prereqs.
These are just prereqs. You're going to take up to Calc 3. You're going to take thermodynamics. You're going to take 2 semesters of electrical engineering. That's just your base curriculum to go to school there. That's not on top of everything else that you're going to do, because I was an econ major, right? So this is, I'm taking macroeconomics classes, accounting classes, political science classes. And all of that stacked on top of the fact that as an athlete there, you have no time. You have no excess time for anything. On average, you probably call it 12 training sessions a week on top of that. And you're taking on the average first 2 years, you're probably taking 19 to 20 credits a semester.
And this is not including travel to games.
And you're missing days and all that other kind of stuff. So, school there was hard, and I hadn't been really pressed academically up until that point. So, perfect storm of you get to the highest level of doing this, in academia, meaning we're going to put you in this incredible pressure cooker, which is not just academic, but it's academic, it's the military component, and you're trying to continue to be a Division I athlete. One of those is going to suffer, if not probably all 3. I struggled there immensely, and I basically just survived academically for 5 years. But again, going back to pain, that's my reference point for pain and duration of pain is 5 years. Like when I think about, hey, how long is this going to last? If it's not 5 years, then I'm like, oh, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Right.
If it's not going to be 5 years, then I'm like, then I'm okay. It's fine. If it's, that's okay.
Especially 5 years at 22 is very different than 5 years at
5 years at 22 feels like 2 decades.
25% of your life.
Yeah. Where 5 years now feels like, okay, that's about the duration of breakfast. If you're thinking about, you know, if you're thinking about like your entrepreneurial life.
Learn to guide yourself. You don't have to keep the identity you currently have. So you had this identity as a dummy. When did you actually decide to leave that identity behind?
I just saw Nancy recently. So
That's Magnon's mom?
Marston.
Marston.
So anybody who's in the CrossFit space, not anybody, but many people in the CrossFit space, the hero WODs are a huge component of what we do as CrossFitters. And Blake Marston, that's a hero workout that I wrote.
And that's part of 41 Heroes? Was that all? Or 31 Heroes?
No, it's a different one.
Oh.
Yeah. Two totally separate scenarios. But Blake was a member at the gym. He was at SEAL Team 6 when this happened, but he had a training accident, a parachute accident. And at that point, we started, because he lived actually right behind us too. So in our neighborhood, there's like these condos that are backed up to our backyard, and he lived in those condos. So I would always see him. He'd be walking his dog Clara through the backyard, and he would stop, and then he was a member at the gym. So like I spent a lot of time with him, oddly, one-on-one, and I never really knew why, because it was always very odd times that he would come in at the gym in weird hours of the day. And so we wrote that workout, and then since then I've become really close to his mom. I see her every year when she comes to Virginia Beach. You know, she's close with our kids. And about 3 years ago, we were out to dinner. Jess was gone, so this is probably 4 years ago. Jess was deployed, and I made a throwaway joke. You know, one of the things that you and I are really good at is self-deprecation. And I think being self-deprecating is good to a point. I think if you can taper it so that it keeps you humble, I think it's very beneficial. But at the point that the self-deprecation starts to perpetuate an identity that is no longer beneficial to you, then I think it now needs to be dealt with. And she highlighted that to me. I made a throwaway comment at dinner about I'm a dummy, and she got so mad at me. And she said, hey, you need to stop saying that. I was like, okay, Nancy. And she was like, no, you need to stop saying that. And at that point I realized, I was like, oh, this is an identity that I've been carrying around that I recognize, that I'm constantly alluding to in some way, shape, or form. Like, oh, I'm not a dummy. I'm just an idiot. It's a jock. Like you think about all the times and the references to that you would make. It was a lot, and all of a sudden that just becomes how you identify. Oh, I'm just a dummy, and it's not necessary, right? Just like, hey, whether you graduate first or last at the Naval Academy, you still graduate. Uh-huh. It's a prestigious institution. You know, is it flawed like every institution? Sure, but it's a big deal to be able to survive that pressure cooker. You're not dumb. You might not be good at electrical engineering, but I don't believe anybody that graduates that institution is dumb. You could make poor decisions and be smart. Those are two different things. So she was the catalyst for that. And that one's a struggle for me, because I think about, had that not happened to him, I may not have had that relationship with his mom.
Well, it's like we said, it's connecting the dots.
You know, it's like, okay, would I give that up? For sure. I would absolutely, like, hey,
of course,
forfeit the conversation, but to have him still here, I would take that every single day, and I would never question it. But so it's hard to see that and emotionally have to rectify, like, hey, there was some good that came out of that, out of this tragedy.
Everything you've discussed so far, right? That's the whole point. Whether it was Logan or
pain.
Yeah. Take me back to a moment when you didn't know what you were doing but started walking anyway. Lesson 1, just start walking.
Probably a good summation of my entire life. Again, I think going back to good parenting, and I think one of the things that my parents instilled me with was a level of self-confidence that allowed me to just do things without fear of failure. And I don't think my parents ever directly said this, but I think it was always kind of implied that it was like, hey, the only way that we would be disappointed with you is if you just didn't try. You know, like that was always kind of the measure for you know, my parents. I don't want to say love because they never withheld love from us, but this is kind of I think it's either influence or mindset, but one of the books talking about I think it's mindset, because it talks about growth versus a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And the way our parents measured reward or praise was always based on effort. It was very rarely based on outcome. And I don't think they knew that at the time. I don't think they were sitting around thinking about, you know, fixed mindset, growth mindset. I think it was just the way that they operated. Going back to just being really lucky, I think. And that was always the case. Like I was never afraid to put myself out there and try to play, you know, at the early age, if we're talking about sports, play with kids that were older than me, who were better than me, that were just going to beat the crap out of me in some way, shape, or form. I was never afraid to be a little bit different. You know, it was almost encouraged to go slightly against the grain, but not so much against the grain that you were now, you know, no longer a good asset to the team. But it was okay to be a little different. Like, don't worry about what people say. Like, have a funny haircut or wear a weird shirt or something like that. And I think that carried over into, I was always kind of an oddball in the military. I was like, I can follow orders, but if something's dumb, I have a really hard time with it. And there's a lot of dumb things in the military. And that's a really good skill set to have in as an entrepreneur, which is like,
What's questioning?
Well, it's questioning, but I think it's also like, what do you fear more? Do you fear failure more, or do you fear not trying more? And I think a lot of people, I see it all the time, where people are so afraid of failure that you're not recognizing what you're forfeiting by not trying. That's always scared me more. You know, you kind of like Ed Milet has talked about this, but also this kind of goes into the 80-year-old self exercise. You know, you get
Solomon.
to, you know, you get to meet your 80-year-old self, and they've achieved everything that you ever wanted to achieve. You know, and part of the exercise is they can tell you one thing and what is it, but I think the more interesting version of the exercise is when you show up at 80 years old to your 80-year-old self who did all of the things, is that version of yourself going to be disappointed in you or really stoked to see you? And I think that's an incredibly interesting frame to look at. You know, if you did everything that you ever imagined, what would that look like? And then if you didn't, what's that version of yourself gonna look at? How are they gonna judge you when you get there? Because the reality is, like, you could have done that, and for whatever reason you didn't. Right? Circumstances aside, tragedy aside, there's always a decision to be made in order to keep going, to do the thing, in order to get where you want to go. Because that version of yourself in no way, shape, or form is probably going to tell you that it was easy. They're not going to tell you that it was a smooth ride. They're going to tell you it's going to cost more than you think it's going to cost. It's going to take longer than you think it's going to take. But if you keep going, you'll get there. So stop worrying about it. The only person that's going to prevent you from doing this is you. So I think about that a lot. When I meet my 80-year-old self, I want him to be really happy. Be like, you did it, dude. Like I'm pumped. Well done. Versus the alternative. The alternative is what keeps me up at night.
You think right now, I'm thinking about it now, I'm like, if I saw myself at that pivotal moment at 22, I'd be like, dude, you're crushing it. Like, you're doing the thing.
Yeah, and then you think about there's probably small periods of time in there where that was not how you would.
Oh, for sure.
Where you'd be like, you're blowing it right now.
Yeah.
You know? So I think it's just an interest. Obviously, everything, those kind of introspection and retrospection become easier as you get older because now you have the luxury of time. But I think about that a lot. Like, would my expectation or would my evaluation of myself be good or bad at this point? And I think bad is okay. I don't think you're gonna have all good. I think it's a fool's errand. I think can you recognize it? And then what do you do about it? Right? How do you fix it? How do you course correct? How do you stop doing something? How do you stop hanging out with people? How do you stop being a lazy piece of shit? How do you fix and do the thing that you don't want to do that you've been putting off for 2 years? Right? Because maybe you have an identity that you are carrying around that that needs to be dealt with. Or you just, because it's not easy for you, then you choose not to do it. Oh, I'm not good at whatever. I'm not good at finances. Great. Get good at finances. Like, learn it. Read a fucking book. Right? Watch 20 hours of YouTube. You'll be smarter than most people in said topic.
Don't confuse motion with progress. Busy is a form of laziness. Let's unpack what real work looks like to you. You said getting shit done is addictive. Getting the right shit done is powerful.
I think one of the greatest lies ever told was hard work will get you where you want to go. The graveyard of entrepreneurship is filled with people that worked really hard. Right? Like all of them, 100% of them worked really hard. Hard work is a prerequisite to success in my mind. It is not the only ingredient. It's one. And if you think that you're going to make a great recipe with one ingredient, it's not going to work out. So I think hard work is kind of the backstop, but there's certain scenarios that there's no amount of hard work that will get you through that. Like there comes a point in certain scenarios where like effort is not the problem.
Right. If I decided to become a basketball player,
effort won't be the issue. Right? So I think recognizing that and not putting all of your eggs all the time in the hard work basket. I think, again, that's an identity that you can carry around. It's like, hey, I work hard. I'm a hard worker. Hard. Everything's got to be hard. We take the hard road because that's what hard people do. Is they do hard shit. Hard-headed people might think like that. And I think that should be a component of who you are and what you do. But what's better than somebody who just works hard? Somebody who works really smart and really hard. Like that's a dangerous person if I'm competing against them, is somebody who has a really good balance of both working hard and being smart. That's not somebody that you want to compete with. That's for like, everybody has, if you played sports, everybody has somebody or a team that they didn't want to play against because you knew they for some reason had your number, whether they either just worked harder than you or they were like a little bit better strategically than you. And for me, that's the version that I want to be, which is like, I want to be the version that people don't want to compete with because they're just like, fuck, like I'm not going to work that hard and I'm definitely not learning at the rate that guy is. Like that's who I'm trying to be.
And then you ask the question often, what if it were easy? Similarly, right? It could be, does it have to be hard?
Well, that was when I was, Dave Robinson did that, dropped that little, time bomb in my brain that day where we do this whole 90-minute session, and that's where it ended. What if it was easy? Had never considered that route.
Because we're as entrepreneurs, you're so used to like, but it's supposed to be hard. And
Think about your time as a wrestler.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's like, hey, you got to work hard. Like, listen, if you don't work hard at wrestling, you will not wrestle.
Right.
Right. Nobody's gonna put you on the mat. You're not gonna make the team. They'll be like, you might be able to hand out towels to everybody, but even then, you're gonna get judged for not doing it fast enough. So I think, but again, that's another instance of an identity that, again, taken too far, now becomes an anchor for you. It doesn't allow you to actually move any faster.
I see it even to this day in jiu-jitsu. I'm 47, and I see these young guys getting banged up, people my age, and they're like, why are you not hurt? I'm like, well, one, I am. I just don't complain about it like you guys. But two,
I'm not being a bitch.
I don't roll like that 100% of the time. There are days where I'm like, I'm just going easy, and if this white belt beats me, cool. Like, I'll be back tomorrow.
Well, Steve Haydock, because I've asked him about, because I don't really do jiu-jitsu, but I remember him saying this one time. He's like, it shouldn't be hard.
Yeah.
He's like, if everything is hard, then you're doing jiu-jitsu wrong.
Yeah, there's a whole reason it's supposed to be the great equalizer.
Yeah.
It's like water, right? You're flowing.
Yeah.
And the people that are hurt are like, I got to be on top and I got to be winning and this and I'm like, or I can be on bottom and just work little things and still be,
Yeah. So I think that.
What if it were easy?
What if it were easy? And I think I've joked with you about this before, but that's something that I value about you. I think you're probably the opposite end of the spectrum in certain things, but where we'll be doing a project or something, and you'll be like, well, let's just not do it that way. And I'm like, no, but like, this is the right way because it's hard. And I'm like, well, that's dumb. It's just, and the reality is it's probably a blend of the two of those ideas, which is.
Yeah, this is when we get mad because people aren't on the right schedule because I'm just like, let them do it.
Right. Yeah. So I think there is, because what's the better version of working really hard? Working really hard on something that is easy for you. Just think about how much faster you could go. If that task was easy for you, or you chose the easier route, but you put the same amount of effort into it, like the outcomes are drastically different than, like, if you wanted an analogy, it'd be like running as hard as you can on the road versus running as hard as you can in the mud.
Yeah.
Same amount of effort, far worse outcome. I don't get from A to B.
Yeah, I mean, it's somewhat
technique and intensity, which is like, hey, like the amount of effort you're putting in there should be some sort of indication of whether this is the right path or not. No, I don't think that's an absolute statement, but I do think it's something to be aware of, particularly in the day of hustle porn and, like sometimes you're just being dumb.
And we, as a team, used Working Genius, right? Mm-hmm. It's similar to that. Like, what are you great at? And how do I get you to work more on those things? Because I know you'll be better, you'll have more fun, you'll work longer and harder. So let's narrow it down to affiliate you for a moment. What's an area for you where you realize I'm just working hard for the sake of working hard?
Well, probably the first. I think I had gotten through most of this prior to doing that, prior to getting into this realm. And I think, you tell me what you think. I think there's a time and a place where you can intentionally do it, as long as you have the understanding that you're not going to do this forever. But I'm doing it because there's something on the back end of that I want, that I think can only be achieved by doing it this way. Now, whether that's hugging the cactus, right? So I think that idea is very likely flawed in some way, shape, or form. But fuck, what's the alternative, right? Like, so probably, was it necessary for me to do homework reviews for every single client for 2 years? No. But the outcome of that is what we have now. So it's like, was that necessary? Was there an easier way? Maybe. But I got the outcome I was looking for, which is I wanted to have I wanted to have so much context on the topic that it would be hard to get it wrong, like statistically improbable, to make the next iteration that we wouldn't do it 5 times better.
Yeah, no, and that's where you and I are different. Because that's in those moments, I was like, when can we bring on coaches?
Right.
And you're like, not yet. And
Not
I'm
yet.
like,
Now, so this is where I would say this is me having the good fortune of hindsight, which is, okay, I can work hard. That I can do, and I'm going to commit to this time frame because I know with good confidence that at the end of this, I'll have the requisite amount of information to then bring on the team, and the team will do the thing that I want them to do. Meaning I will be able to give them the direction, I'll be able to give them the framework, I'll be able to give them the resources that they need, that then training the team actually becomes really easy because I had all of the information. There was no guessing happening, and it was going to be 99% of the desired product. Now, we've iterated on that since then, and I would argue we've added 10, 20, 30%, but that first iteration of like doing that painful part, like that kind of like messy middle, I don't think you should shy away from those. Again, you could do anything poorly, meaning like you could just do that forever and never get out of it.
You could have done that without the intent of,
I
I'm
think-
just going to do homework reviews forever.
And then, yes, nobody else can do homework reviews better than me, all of that kind of stuff. But I think intent is the differentiating factor there. What's the intent behind you taking on this pain or doing this the hard way?
Well, similarly to both of us getting on seminar staff when we're coaching non-existent people in the med ball clean, right? That was painful, and that was weeks, if not months, if not years. But it made us, one, we both got our level 4 first shot on everything.
One's legit, one's not.
And then, but 2, we've also become very good at developing other coaches, right? So
Right.
same principles.
Right.
But now looking back on it, you say 2 years. In retrospect, was there a point in time where you're like, all right, I could have stopped 12 months, 15 months and gotten the same result? Like, did you need to go for 24 months?
Maybe. I don't know.
You don't know.
It's
right.
I think it's one of those things where like does it matter?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think you did the thing, and does 6 months matter ultimately?
Well, so I think.
But looking forward, there are going to be times where you're
Correct, but this is the idea of iteration, and I think like anything, once you do something once, the next version can be done faster. So will the next version be 24 months? No, whatever the next version of the next thing is would be 12, and then it will be 6, and then it will be 3, and then it won't be at all. But I think there's an epidemic of people trying to skip the learning process inside of entrepreneurship. Yeah, I'm going to outsource it. I'm going to be, the CEO. I'm going to do all of these things. I was literally just listening to something yesterday. Who was it? Oh, former CEO of Airbnb. And he was talking about, I should have written it down, but he was saying that effectively like no more middle managers, meaning like if they were not capable of doing the job, they could not be a manager. And Steve Jobs said this too, which is like the most effective managers were the people that were best at doing the thing and were kind of like reluctant leaders. They were just so good that eventually being in charge became the obvious answer for everybody. And I think people skip that. Now, do you need to be the best at doing accounting? Do you need the best at designing your website? No. But I think there's for sure components of that, particularly if we're going to talk like small business,
We've seen it in our team.
Micro business, if you want to call it that you should not do all of the things. There will be points where you have to do all of the things, or there will be a point where you have to step back in and take over for somebody in some instances. So I'm not saying that you need to be the best, but I do think there's a level of competency across a broad set of skills for entrepreneurs that allows you to hire better people, to train people more effectively, and to create cohesion across departments or elements of the business that you would not otherwise be able to do if you hadn't done that thing for some duration.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. One of my good buddies from jiu-jitsu is a veterinarian, Dr. Andrew, and I hadn't seen him in a while. He's like, man, I'm back doing all of the like procedures. And I said, oh, you're only one vet away from being back in the operating room, huh?
No, it's always the same.
And he was like, what? And I was like, well, that's what we tell our clients. Like, you're only one coach away from being on the floor. And I was like, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
It's like it's
just not a coach; it's a vet.
Yeah, it's like all business is ultimately the same. And actually, you said something to me yesterday at dinner when we were talking about Cassidy, and you're like, yeah, I think he's taking like 2 weeks off, and you said it very nonchalantly, but in my mind, I was like, oh, that means you're running a good business, right? You essentially were like, my head coach. I think he's taking about 2 weeks off. Like, you didn't know it exactly, which is fine.
I told him to take off as much time as he needed.
And it didn't impact your life.
Well, I had already learned that lesson.
The first time you had a kid?
No, just like learning, again, like you learned micro versions of a lesson. I was talking to some clients the other day. It was about this exact topic, about coaches, and I'm coaching back on the floor. And I said, hey, learn the lesson, but only learn it once. Mm-hmm. Because the longer you do this, the more it hurts when you have to learn it again.
Yeah, and especially when you think you've learned it. It's like, go to jiu-jitsu. It's like, I just got caught in an armbar, never again. It's like, I just got caught in the same armbar.
Yeah.
I thought I learned this one.
And so, going all the way back to where we started, which is assuming that you don't know. Mm-hmm. Hey, I think I'm good, but maybe I'm not.
Yeah.
What would I do if I wasn't good? And this is because, again, this is the one, if for affiliate owners specifically, this is the one where everybody learns this lesson 3 too many times. Oh, I had a coach and then they're gone and now I'm back on the floor. I'm like, how many times are we going to learn this lesson?
It's been one of my favorite things as of recent. I can think of 2 examples: Ellie, mm-hmm. Coney Island, and Nick and Casey at Rokias. Yep. They both lost a bunch of coaches for various reasons at the same time. And I told them, like, cool, head down. And I think this is a mistake entrepreneurs don't make. It's like, but I've already done the head down thing. Like, cool, time to do it again.
Yeah.
We'll do it again. And like, we're at a point now where things might seem pretty steady, mm-hmm. and then we'll get rocky again. And like this is a season. You
won't have to do it this time for 5 years. Yeah. You'll do it this time for 6 months.
And you're gonna never have to do it again, by the way, if done properly.
Yeah.
And I challenged them both. I was like, cool, I need you to get a staff in 90 days and make them, so day 91 they're coaching and you're back off the floor, mm-hmm. Within reason.
Maybe it's 92, maybe it's 93, it doesn't matter.
Right, but they both did it. And it's that idea of like, hey, it's okay to go head down. I'm not saying, I was like, I'm not telling you not to sleep. I'm not telling you not to train. I'm just telling you, when you're focusing on the business, this is your focus. Like, keep your budget in check and do all the things, but less, like we talked about earlier, like being busy, be productive right now. And this is the end goal.
Yeah, going back to, like you said, like getting shit done is addictive, but getting the right shit done is like,
this is the right shit.
This is the right shit. And this is where I think being able to do that with height, like, sometimes violence is the answer.
Yeah.
Sometimes it means I have to be so aggressive about this endeavor that it seems kind of insane. But if you do that, it is highly likely that you're going to compress the pain period in order to get that resolved. Like, we just went through it. Like, and I briefed the team on it, you know, like at the last team meeting, when I said, hey, listen, I want to acknowledge now that we're kind of on the back end of this, that's not going to be a normal set of circumstances where I'm going to ask everybody to do all of these things in this period of time. But the reality is, when I looked at it and I assessed it, I'm like, they must be done. And we can do it in this amount of time, or we can do it in this amount of time. Which one do you want? And I'm a person that likes, if we're going to do pain, I want to do it all in one sitting. I don't want to stretch this out. Let's just get it the fuck over with.
It hurts the same, just longer.
Right. And what happens is, if you stretch the pain out, or you stretch the problem out longer, there's all of these subtle breakdowns that happen. Like, it's because now there's a never-ending underlying tone of pain all the time. Mm-hmm. And people don't like that. Eventually people become burnt out. Versus, hey, this is gonna hurt. And when we're done, we'll be done.
And it was like the whole 90 days. Like, we would literally go to the calendar and be like, you're gonna be done on this day. Can you make it that far? And again, I'm like, you're sleeping 8 hours, you're exercising, like you're eating right, like you're not sacrificing your health.
Yeah.
What does showing up mean to you now?
I think this is probably a Simon Sinek brain bug that I got, but just looking at business and how you approach thing, like every day that you get to open the doors in your affiliate or in a business is a good day. Business is hard. Business is really hard. The bigger the business gets, the better you get at business, the harder it gets. It's just different problems that you have to solve. So I think just always having the mindset of just show up, because use a training analogy. What's the best way for somebody to be successful when they come to the gym?
Show up.
Show up.
Yeah.
Don't worry about, if the workout going to be hard. Don't worry about, am I going to train 3 or 4 days this week? Don't worry about how you slept last night. Don't worry about, did you or did you not hit your macros that day? Just show up. That's the one thing that you have control over, is just show up, swing the axe, repeat again tomorrow. And then in doing all of that, try to make some smarter decisions.
And often, naturally, those just happen.
If you learn the lesson once. If you have to learn it multiple times, then it's, the pain is longer, the road is longer, everything is harder about it when it doesn't need to be. And if you just admit that something is broken or you don't know something, then you can get to resolving it faster. And then put all of your eggs in that bucket. And put everybody's eggs in that bucket, not just yours. This is something I was reading about recently, and I've been trying to play around with this. Is like, once you've set your eyes on a target, kind of like put everything on pause and point the entire team's resources at the problem. I don't know what the thing would be, but let's assume that if you put 5, 6, 7, 8 people's resources and attention and thoughts on that one problem, you would get it resolved in a day. You would have a solution drawn up on the board that would be something that you could execute in very short order. Like, just get it over with, but point everybody's attention at it. Don't just bounce around and try to solve it by yourself. I've done this more times than I care to talk about with regard to affiliates. They're trying to solve a scheduling problem. I'm like, how many people are involved in the schedule? 11. Cool. Sit all 11 people in the room, define the problem, tell them what the desired outcome is, and tell them that every possible solution is on the board. Go. Every single time they come out with a solution. Why? Because there's 11 brains in the building now versus 1.
And you're hearing each other, right? You're probably more...
Well, there's things that you didn't know, right? Like, I didn't know that you could coach that block of time because we've never talked about it, and I just assumed that you couldn't for whatever reason. But you're like, oh, I can do that. That's not a problem. Like, I do X, Y, and Z, and I can have no problem. That actually be better for me. And I'm like, that you could have, you had an extra set of gloves the whole time, right? Like, it's like, it's one of those things where, like, just get everybody in the room and solve it.
Well, going back to those, Ellie, I remember I was like, he's like, there's no coaches for this time. I'm like, did you ask them? And it's always like, oh, they can do it. I'm like, yeah, because you never asked.
You never asked.
But like, it was like 5 years ago they said they couldn't do this 6 p.m. class. It's like, yeah, their kid was in an activity that
Right.
they're driving.
They graduated. Yeah. They graduated high school. They don't even live at home anymore.
And,
Yeah.
you know, on this note, you know, we've said it to our clients where it's like, get your budget dialed in and show up to calls.
That's it.
That's it. Like,
Everything else is a, you know,
it's a byproduct of that, right?
Yeah. There's three things that I tell affiliate owners when they work with us. I'm like, if you do these three things, and it's like a running joke, I don't even mean that you do them well. You just do them in any fashion.
Right. It's like showing up to a CrossFit class. Like, I'm not saying you move virtuously. I'm just saying you show up.
You show up, and over a long enough period of time, that will change. One is they show up on a regular basis.
To small group calls.
Small group calls, some sort of call, you know, but you show up. I said, you know, at the second you start to ghost us or we don't see you, there's a red flag on that. You're going to show up in the very near future with a problem that we probably could have prevented, but, you know, you didn't, and so now here we are, right? So number two.
Well, I think that's like, there's people like, they just weigh themselves every day. I don't even talk about nutrition, but the simple act of knowing I'm going to step on the scale tomorrow makes me make better decisions. And
Correct.
It's the same. Like, I'm going to be on a call next week with Fern. I better do.
He's going to ask me a question.
Right.
Yeah. So one is show up. Two is get your budget in place. Financially literate entrepreneurs are better at everything. All things equal, give me one that has a budget, one that doesn't. I'll take the one with the budget. Every day of the week, twice on Sunday. And as a business owner, root cause or root solution to most things that you're going to be dealing with have
Money.
some sort of factor that plays into the budget, right? You just make better decisions when you have a good hold on your resources, capital being one of them. And then three is manage their time. And this one is one that it's like, you know, it's like it's a throwaway comment, which is like, so I always try to define manage your time. And I define managing your time as set aside the minimum required amount of time to do the main thing. Now, what's the main thing? I tell them the list that I just gave you is the main thing. So I've told you exactly what it is. I don't care how long that takes you to do it. It could take you 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 weeks. I don't care. Whatever the minimum is for you, that's what we do. And I think when you can frame, because everything else that they would want or that needs to happen is a correlate of those three things, and a very strong correlate at that everybody that we work with that does those three things is successful. Now, there's an evolution of those three things, meaning how often you show up. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. Sometimes that in many instances dependent on like what you have going on and what's your level of, you know, what's your level of competence in the business, right? If you're the more competent you become, in a lot of instances, the frequency might drop off. But if you're new to the game, we should probably see you on a higher frequency, you know. And then the money, there's multiple levels to that, which is like just understanding where your cash flow goes. And then it's like understanding what it means, right? And then managing your time, that morphs for everybody based on priorities and what your team looks like, but constantly trying to be a master of time management and resources. And, you know, I think both time management and money fall kind of squarely into that, like what I described as like the knowing framework. So like in order to really solve any problem, you have to know three things. You have to know what it is, I have to know what it means, and I have to know what to do about it. If you don't have one of those three, you fundamentally can't solve the problem. And most of us only have two of those at any given time. And usually it's missing the third one, which is like, what do you do about it? Right?
I know what the problem is.
I know what the problem is, but I'm like, but I don't know how to fix it, right? So, you know, an example would be like if you said your deadlift was, I don't know, 135 pounds. Okay, well now I know what it is. Okay, now maybe I'm not into fitness, so I don't know if that's good or bad. So just based on that, I wouldn't know what to do about it. I wouldn't have any sort of idea on like what a corrective action or non-action would look like or entail. But if I am into this world and you say it's 135 and you tell me that you weigh 150, okay, well now I know what it is. I also know what this means now, which means this is not
Low.
good. It's low relative to the capacity that you should possess if you're doing even moderate amount of weight training. But then even if I know that, if I don't know how to fix it, it's almost as good as not knowing it at all. Like the problem will just persist. So then you have to get to, okay, if I know what it is and I know what it means, do I know what to do about it? If you can answer all three questions, then the only question we have to ask is, why are you not doing that? Which goes back into like, okay, are you not managing your time? Like, are you not showing up? Are you not doing these
like
things?
you said, affiliate ownership, like budget, track it,
Right,
show up consistently to the platform,
right,
right? And what's the minimum amount of time it's going to take for you to, it's the 5x5 every
Right.
Friday.
right.
The solution to get better at anything.
Yeah, I think it's just constantly evaluating where you're putting your time and effort. And, you know, I think ultimately that's the difference between passion and obsession.
If you confuse the game you're in, you'll never win it. Talk us through your 3-part strategy framework and why most people get it backwards. That framework being, what business are you in? What game are you playing?
Yep.
What do you do?
Yeah, this was a framework that I kind of backed into it over about a 6-month period, but it stemmed from a discussion about strategy. And, you know, the prompting thought or the prompting discussion was this idea that there are 2 gaps that every business has to cover. One is the strategy gap and the other one is the execution gap. Now, there's really good argument to say that execution trumps strategy, and I do believe in that inherently. But I think the part that it leaves out is that strategy past just largely being directionally correct, spending too much time there, I think, is detrimental. I think it becomes like a weird version of mental masturbation, just trying to rehash the strategy all the time. So I, in my experience, like strategy needs to be directionally correct, execution needs to be absolutely correct. And if you can get a good balance of those two, then you're probably running a pretty sound business. So then, how do I guess it's probably worth what's the difference between strategy or tactics, or strategy and execution? Plainly stated, strategy is I want to win the war. Tactics or execution is how do I win this battle right now in front of me today. And those are very different. So what I ended up landing on, which is a pretty eye-opening, because I did it for us, for Best Hour first. And then I ended up doing it for affiliates, and then I started doing it for pizza shops. And then I started running every business that I would interact with, like through the framework, to see if I could come up with the 3 answers to the questions. And in order to get to the point where you have a sound strategy that you can then execute on in an absolute nature, you'd have to be able to answer 3 questions. And the first one is, what business am I in? The second one is, what game are you playing? And the third one is, what do you do? And what happens is most people confuse what they do for what business they are in. Meaning, if you're a CrossFit gym, you would say, hey, they think they're in the gym business, right? But that's what you do. You run a CrossFit gym. But the business they're in is really a hospitality business, and otherwise defined saying making the clients feel seen and heard, or giving them a scenario in which they could realize the best versions of themselves. That's hospitality. But like whether you're going to a restaurant or whether you're going to a hotel or a cruise or whatever, if you've had like really high-end experiences, like you feel like everybody's there to deal with you, right? And that's fundamentally, but having that subtle framework or that subtle shift in how you view that fundamentally changes the overarching strategy. It changes how you interact with your clients. It changes how you train your coaches. If I look at this as we are in the customer service business based, or are we in the gym business? Those are 2 very different ideas and approaches that you would take to those two things, depending on how you answer the question.
Right, gym business, you'd be like, well, we have to get everybody as fit as possible, and this is the strategy we use versus,
Right.
well, what happens when someone shows up 5 minutes late? How do you
Right.
handle that?
Right. Or I haven't seen them in a while. Or
I was telling Marcus this. I was at a gym the other day, and I heard a new client tell a trainer essentially their life story about exercise and injuries and all this. But it wasn't the trainer they're about to work with. So then the guy goes, okay, I'm going to go get your trainer. Goes and gets a trainer, and he was like, so tell me about your life, right? And I saw that exact look.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, I wish you were just
I literally
here.
just told that whole story.
And we've experienced it on, you're dealing with a bot, my phone's not working,
Yeah.
et cetera. Like, oh, what's the problem? I just typed it all.
Yeah.
And that's customer service.
Yes.
Versus those trainers like, I'm going to get you in shape. But it's like, but you already just lost me.
Yeah, you weren't listening.
Yeah, and you wasted my time.
Yeah. And here's the reality, like, really good customer service as somebody who has failed at it many times is hard.
Yeah.
Like, because people suck, because
Well, then like
it
you
takes,
said, you're here to dote on me.
right.
That's what your job is.
Right.
It's like,
You know, because people suck, because you really have to think, you have to be very thoughtful about how you design customer experience. You have to think about this through a long lens. So no, it's not easy. So 1, what business are you in? 2, what game are you playing? So the thing that's really interesting about this framework, about solving the strategy gap dilemma, is like most people confuse what do they do with what business they're in, and almost nobody knows what game they're playing. Like in almost any industry. So otherwise stated, if you were to ask somebody, like just go to a pizza parlor.
let's use it. Walk me through this for a pizza place.
You know, if it's a pizza place, we're like, but if you were to say, what game are you playing? Stated another way, be like, hey, how do you win? How do you win? So first you have to define what winning means. And winning could be a bunch of different things. But let's just say that you want to be the best pizza parlor in town. Like, let's just say that when they think about reviews, they think about the number of tables that you turn, you think about orders, order outs, like whatever. That would be some variation of you would be winning.
So what business are you in?
As a pizza joint?
Yeah. It's not the pizza business, because that's what do you do?
No, it's not
good pizza, right?
It's not the pizza business, but that would be like, what's the experience that people have when they eat pizza?
Right. What business are you in? I was thinking back to college. I'm like, we get drunk people pizza fast.
Right. If that's the business you're in, this is a deselection at its core, right? Meaning, like, I've now deselected everybody but drunk college students, and now I've made a very compelling niche marketing campaign as a pizza place.
Yeah, but I mean, this was like
The business is, how do I win? Is number 1 is I choose my target audience very, very specifically.
right.
And I would say, oh, we get drunk college kids pizza fast. And
And
I'm calling that place every day.
But I could also be like, I don't use the best product, so I keep my margins high.
Right.
Right.
It's not the best pizza.
Right.
Right. It's not the most. It's not expensive.
But we get it up fast.
Yeah. I'm not going to give you a bunch of different toppings. Right. You're going to have the widest range of options, but it's going to be cheap and you're going to get it fast.
And we're also open for only like from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m.
That's it.
Right.
Right. So that would be an example of like, well, what game are you playing? How do you win? Well, I would think about how would I scoop up a whole demographic of people and give them exactly what they want.
Well, I got to open in the right spot, because they got to be out near bars. I got to get my ingredients cheap.
Yeah.
I got to hire staff that's willing to work from 10 to 2.
So
All
in
those
this,
things.
yeah. So this goes into, how do you win? Well, first you have to understand, like, what's the game, meaning, like, what are the rules, right? Okay, so there's 5 pizza joints in town. Okay.
Well, that one closes at 6 p.m.
That one
so
closes
they're-
at 6 p.m., right? Okay, so you start to lay out the rules, that whether the rules are unspoken, spoken, unknown, or known, but there's unspoken and spoken rules in every game.
Mhm.
And figuring out, like, okay, well, what are we doing here?
Well, so you
Like,
say
how do
that,
you do
that's funny, because I'm like, oh yeah, Monopoly. You pass go, you get $200.
Right.
Like it's an unspoken rule.
It's an
We all know
unspoken
it,
rule.
right?
It's an unspoken rule, but it is a rule.
Right, but then there's other ones where it's like, well, when you land on free parking, do we put money in the middle? Like that's kind of like, it's not in the rules, but some people do, right?
Correct. Yeah. So it's kind of, okay, well, how do I navigate all of that? So then you have to, once you frame all of that, then you can figure out, well, if I know where the boundaries are and I know how to score points and I know what's a foul, and I know what would give me an advantage or disadvantage, well, then I start to look at execution across all of those in order to beat the rest of the competitors, which is, hey, if I want to get, drunk college kids pizza fast, location is probably important. I want to have, probably a full suite of delivery drivers that have like really fast turnover. And I'm probably going to want to limit the types of pizza that I sell so that I can just start to pre-make them, which is like we do cheese, we do pepperoni, and we do sausage. That's it. We don't do any vegetables. It's literally just those are your options.
And also, then you can start thinking, we don't need seating because I don't actually want drunk kids in my restaurant.
Right. So now it's just, so now I'm limiting my.
They're drunk, they're not driving.
Right.
Here.
So now we're just going to deliver it to you. So, so that would be an example of that.
Pizza University.
Then, but to go back to the conversation we had earlier about like, hey, how many times are you going to learn this lesson? For affiliate ownership, the hospitality business, but the game that you're playing, meaning how do you win? Meaning like, what is the problem that we deal with, that every affiliate owner and from the beginning of time until the end of time is going to have to deal with, is you must be in the business of making great coaches.
Right. That solves all.
It solves all of the problems.
And it's interesting because as funny as that is to think about it from pizza and we're serving drunk college kids, affiliate ownership is the same. Like people are different and they're coming to you for different needs and wants and desires, and too many affiliates are like, we help everyone. Oh yes, we understand CrossFit is for everyone. However,
so this is an interesting discussion. It is not for everyone. Anybody can do CrossFit, but it is not for everyone. It is, and I don't know if you remember this. Like Nicole Carroll and I had we didn't have a disagreement, but like
on the podcast.
Yeah, but we disagreed on the podcast about that when we interviewed her at the games a couple years.
Yeah.
She's like, no, it's for everybody, and I said, well, no, it is by its very definition exclusive. I don't mean exclusive like, hey, you're not cool. It's exclusive in the sense that if you don't like to try hard,
right, it's high intensity,
or if you are not interested in being in a group setting, then this is probably not for you.
Which, by the way, is both of those are real.
Correct, right? So, and again, it's just understanding that, and it's not a bad thing. I would argue when CrossFit was at its peak, they deselected better than anybody, right? Like that was the whole classic deselection. Whether done purposely or not is irrelevant, but it is one of the more beautiful expressions of deselection from a marketing standpoint. Was our warm-up is your warm-up is your workout.
We're saying, hey, we're going to work really hard here.
Really hard. Immediately you have deselected a huge segment of people.
And we've all had people that have come in and been like, oh, this is not for me. Well, and it's
now, is that good or bad? Does that need to evolve over time? Yes. Can you do that more effectively and less effectively? Absolutely. But it doesn't take away the point that deselection and understanding how you win is a core component of doing fucking anything.
Well, it's niching down too,
Right.
And to your point of all of this is solved with developing coaches, because I don't know about you, but I was very dogmatic in my CrossFit approach, right? Like you're talking about 2007, 2008, it's like, oh, there is no going. What do you mean you're going easy? Like we're doing Fran.
Yeah.
Like you need to sell
I'm going to
out.
need you to light yourself on fire. Yeah.
So now when you develop a staff that has empathy and understanding and asks questions and you're like, hey, Fern, you're tired.
Right.
How about you just come in and use 75 and we do jumping pull-ups, or you go slower, like understanding that. Now you are taking something and you can expand the demographic there, because there is a potential to go a little easier. And your gym should have that. Your gym should have some people that...
Well, again, going back to some of the frameworks, there's a difference between knowing something, knowing what it means, and knowing what to do about it. There's a difference between knowing that CrossFit, by definition, is constantly varied functional movements executed high intensity, versus knowing that high intensity does not mean maximal intensity, nor does it mean high intensity every single day, because that would violate, by its very definition, the variance component of that. So just walking through that simple thought allows your coaches to have a broader view on how to approach any given training day for an athlete, which is like, okay, and again, this is not mine. This is Pat Sherwood doing what Pat Sherwood does, which is like taking complex things and saying them eloquently. which is like, well, if there's a high intensity, then it's safe to say that there's a medium and there's a low. So let's just break this out and say that mathematically at this point, that high intensity would be 66.6% or higher, which doesn't really sound that high. If that was your starting point for high intensity, by definition, if it's a high, medium, and low equal thirds, that means that high is 66.6 and above.
And which also does not mean maximum. Which
Correct.
has a
Yeah. Maximum is like the very last.
It's like
point.
my speaker goes to 11.
Yeah, and then
right?
it blows
like that's
up.
The
yeah.
max.
Yeah. So I think that's a classic example of knowing something, but not necessarily knowing what it means. When you watch somebody execute it, the kind of like the early days version, which is every day is max intensity, and we're just going to go until somebody throws up or we tear a hand or something. And listen, I'm not going to say that was all bad, but like it's definitely not sustainable.
It brings me back to your point about hugging the cactus, though. Like, had we not done that, this CrossFit I remember seeing Coach Glassman.
But learn the lesson once.
Sure. No, we were back in the day. Glassman would travel around, and I remember he would do like these Q&As, and someone asked, he's like, "How come you always put the best people on CrossFit.com?" Like at the time, I remember it was like Spieler and even Pat Sherwood, and he's like, as soon as I put Richard Simmons on there, I'm not getting people above him, right? But if I put Spieler, and it's changed. Remember the period of time they were like in the living room, right?
The blue jugs,
right? But I do think that was vital at the beginning. Like, we're the crazy people in fitness, and we drew those people in, and now we can start to trickle down to the everyday people. But if we would have said, "Hey, this is for everyone, and your mom can do it on day one," it never would have.
It wouldn't have taken off.
Correct.
Yeah, if you didn't start at the pointy end of the spear, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, it's like anything, like it's like social media these days. You need to be.
Yeah, if I'm trying to cut through an industry that is as massive as fitness, if you think about it, like a blunt instrument is probably not the best tool, right? I'm probably going to want a scalpel, and that ultimately is what CrossFit was, because they took something that was niche and they took the human beings that were on the far end of the spectrum and they used them as the example, at which point it stuck out immediately. It immediately was intriguing. It immediately was a conversation starter. It immediately broke the mold of many ideas that we have now come to realize were not accurate to begin with. Now, were there bumps along the way? For sure, but the point still stands that CrossFit is not for everybody. Anybody can do it. Going back to, I think this is kind of the language they're using now, which is like, for the willing. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Even imperfect tools can do the work.
The number of times that somebody, and when I say somebody, I'm talking about myself, would make an excuse that you couldn't do something because you didn't have the right tool. I didn't have the right software. That spreadsheet wasn't designed the way that I wanted to. The equipment wasn't what I needed it to be. They're just excuses. Somebody with worse scenario, with less tools, is doing the thing better than you are. Just statement of fact.
It's it's like basketball, right? You see the guys that are playing in the playground with a chain net and the hoops at 10.5 feet, right? And it's like they're making the NBA.
All right, so I'll give you an example. So when I was growing up, my best friend at the time, Victor, lived 4 houses down from me. And his dad was the president of Southern University, which is a historically black college in Baton Rouge, or right outside of Baton Rouge. And we were both basketball nuts. And he had this really big driveway, so you could probably legitimately put 8 cars in his driveway. It was like really wide, really deep, and they had a basketball hoop there. And we would always go to Victor's house to play basketball. However, the slope on the driveway was not crazy, but it wasn't insignificant.
Everybody had that friend's driveway who had
Right.
that.
But then there was an added wrinkle to this, which was, so they had the regular slope driveway. So the house is here, and then they had like a carport, or like a kind of like a garage. In the South, they have carports, but like where the door doesn't necessarily close. It's just like a kind of like a three-sided house, essentially, where you put your cars. And that the kind of like the lip, or the ramp that went into the carport had another slope to it that went in the other direction. So one slope's going this way, the other slope's going this way, but it also had like a hard 90-degree curb edge on it, which is covered 50% of the basketball court. So we would play endlessly on that, to the point where all of us knew how to dribble the ball on that end of the court. I mean, like, it's not going to go the direction that you want it to. It's definitely not going to go the direction you want it to if you hit the edge of the curve. But we learned to play in that environment. So this is for sure an imperfect tool. You would never encounter that in a basketball game.
Watch out for the carport.
Or watch out for the carport. Or like, hey, if you would know that if you were gonna do either a 1-on-1 or a 2-on-2, there were certain things that you needed to navigate on that side of the court, that you had to change just slightly how you were gonna do something. Also, same thing where like the pole is directly underneath the basketball. So like if you're going to do a layup, you need to not run into that when you're doing that.
Right, different than it being behind the back.
Behind the back, or just, not there at all, where there's nothing underneath that. So that's a perfect example of like imperfect tool didn't matter. The point was we played every single day. He played in college, I played in college. And that statistically, that statistic by itself is improbable, if not almost impossible. That two kids living 4 doors down from each other would both play Division I basketball.
Where'd he go?
He went to Southern.
And I think, it's funny because, one, as much as I joke about basketball, like my buddy Bill Castro down the road, that's where we played. And it was like similar. It was like, oh, the garden's over there. And it's funny, like you play horse and you're like off the garden.
Yeah.
But even for us in high school wrestling, it was like, we practiced in the high school cafeteria, so every day we had to pull the mats out, unroll them, roll them back up. Yeah. But it was like, there were spots where you're like, oh, the mat doesn't roll out all the way. Yeah. And you change how you shoot. Or even today, jiu-jitsu, it's like there's a wall there, so I stand up on it, right? And it's like, okay, you just learn how to navigate. Yeah. But then when it comes, essentially, I think what the point to this is, like, even imperfect tools can do the work. People make excuses. People make excuses. You could go in any number of directions. Hey, which software should I use? It doesn't matter. You say this all the time. Like, use
it
Wi-Fi,
doesn't
use
matter.
Push press. They both have issues.
It doesn't matter which software tool that you use. It's like, are you capable of using the software? Do you know how to use it? Do you know where to find the report that you want? Because if you don't think you're gonna have the same problem in the other software? Like, you don't think it's not going to have tech gremlins in it? You don't think that it's not going to have updates that don't go the way that they intended when they had their project roadmap for that? You don't think it's never going to have downtime? Like, what are you talking about? Well, it's like, well, I want my spreadsheet to be this way. And I'm like, who cares? Make it work. Like, it's like, you could use this one or you could use Trello. I'm like, yes, you could use all of them. Yeah. Pick one and just use it and learn to use the tool. And what I think the hidden benefit of doing that is that the tiny things that you learn, going back to the basketball on the carport, by dealing with imperfections, make you better as tools progress. Somebody who knew how to use the first version of whatever, Word, in Microsoft, who knew how to use it pretty well. As the tool got better and it still had issues with it, they were still better than everybody else, even though every version of that has been imperfect. It's like AI this day. Right. It's like, oh, I don't know how to use AI. And I'm like, it's an imperfect tool. Do you know how to use it? Are you using it actively? Are you trying to learn how to do it? Nobody said it was going to be perfect. But when and if it does become perfect, you're still not going to be good at it. You're still not going to be good at it because you don't understand it. You don't have the frame of reference, or you don't have the perspective of using the old version. They're like, hey, trying to think of different scenarios. Like, well, I think it goes to your basketball point or my wrestling point. It's like when you're playing on a normal court and now that corner shot is open
and you don't have to change your dribble.
Yeah, I'm
like,
not going to
"Oh,
have
all
1
day."
foot 4 inches
Yeah.
higher than the other one when I shoot that jump shot. Like, it's not going to be an
Yeah.
issue. So I think it's just like, stop worrying about if you have the right tools and just learn to use any tools that you have at your disposal. Like, having an imperfect tool doesn't mean you can't get the outcome that you're looking for. It might be a little bit harder. It might take you a little bit more time, but listen, those are the circumstances that you have, and pretending that you're going to have ideal circumstances in a less than ideal scenario is silly. Which is like, hey, if and I try to tell the gym, I'm like, they're like, a gym owner will say, be like, oh, one of my coaches quit, and the kids are in summer school, and I've got this going on. What do I do? Or how do I deal with this? I'm like, first, let's operate from the assumption that these are less than ideal circumstances.
Right.
Because if we do that, we will be okay with less than ideal outcomes.
What's also the framing? I think so many affiliate owners like, this is hard. You're like, who told you this wasn't going to be hard?
I had this conversation with Jason and Danielle recently.
Yeah.
They were like, hey,
I did as well.
He said, dude, is it supposed to be this hard? And I said, yes. And I'm going to shorten the conversation, but that was effectively the end of the conversation. He was just like, oh, okay. And I'm like, right. Meaning, if nobody tells you, if you were briefing a workout that was some grueling Murph, and you didn't preface that with, this is going to be difficult, this is going to be challenging. If you're doing this, on Memorial Day in the South, and it's hot outside, and you don't kind of prep people for the fact that this is going to take you 40, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, depending where you're at. Do you understand the mental, gymnastics that people are going to have to do to make it through that? Mm-hmm. Versus if you just say, this is going to be really hard. It's hot outside. Make sure you're drinking water. Do not run fast on the first mile if you're capable of doing so. And maybe break the push-ups up. I've now given a very accurate representation of what is about to occur. And people don't do that for business. People aren't be like, hey, if you just do all of these things, it's going to work out just fine. I'm like, no, all of it will break all the time. There is no scenario in which this doesn't kick you square in the dick.
But that's
just the way it is. I've literally never met an entrepreneur that was worth talking to that doesn't have a story of just getting absolutely clobbered at some point in their journey when they're just a battered mess. It's not a thing.
It's just a complete reframe for so many. When you just accept this is normal.
No, it shouldn't be normal forever, right? Meaning but you do have to tell people the truth. And I have a real pet peeve with people not accurately portraying what this is like. This is why I always try to be very honest with people. I'm like, this is probably going to take a while. I have told many of our younger gym owners who are doing this in their early 20s, and they're like, hey, what's this going to be like? Well, you have two options. You can stretch this out and have some sort of balance, or you can give up everything for the next 12 months, and you can wake up early, train people, sleep on the floor at the gym, maybe eat lunch, maybe not, train a little bit during the day, train people at night, and then go home just enough time to eat dinner and go to bed to repeat the following day. And if you do that, you'll be good in 12 months.
I think, let's say a name of someone that did that.
Kanan.
Yeah.
Right.
I was going to play a game, but we didn't.
100, he grows the gym and is growing.
200 members.
Right, and then growing. But had I not been honest with him on the front end, I don't believe 100%. He would have gotten that outcome.
No, I think.
And I told him, I was like, you're young, you'll be fine. Or if you're young, use that to your advantage.
But I think that just that overall reframe of this is normal, this is how you should feel. For me, a great example, until the kids, I didn't hang out with people always ask me a question she's the only 4-year-old I hang out with, so I don't have a reference for other people. Your kids are older, Market, those are it. And I remember I always since she's a baby, take her to gymnastics. And I was like, this is terrible. She doesn't listen. And then his dad rolls in for the first time. Dude, I felt he came in clearly from work. He's wearing business casual, within minutes, he's just full sweat, dripping. Like I'm talking like he's in a sauna sweating. And I could tell he was like, what is happening? My kid's not listening. And now I see this guy pretty often in town. I'm like, hey dude, we all went there. Like, this is normal.
Yeah. It's fine.
And like he was like, oh. Because I didn't know that. And
they're not supposed to listen. They're 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like, he was like, I could tell he was like, I'm taking this kid out of here. I was like, you got to stay.
Yeah.
And even for me at times where I'm like, oh, none of these kids listen. Like, I'm like so mad at my kid's broken. I'm like, oh, none of them want to go to bed.
This is an interesting conversation about just, again, maybe. Hey, is this normal? Maybe. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But like, we're really quick, just as kind of like a society, to assume that certain behaviors are not normal. Mm-hmm. Like to assume that 6-year-old boys should sit still for long durations of time. Yeah. They're like, why won't he sit still? Well, he's 6.
He's 6 and he's a boy.
He's 6 and he's a boy,
and he just
right? And he can't pay attention for more than 5 seconds, right? I don't why. Where did we get to some point at this expectation that he should be able to sit still for long bouts of time and be interested in doing his ABCs? Listen, yes, he should read. We all agree. I disagree that he should sit still and be a robot for long durations of time.
Look at things
I'm like, that's perfectly normal behavior.
Well, they would say like, well, 20 years ago, cool. In the last 20 years, there's been phones and iPads and other things that are influencing all of us.
Yeah, we're going a little bit tangent, but like this, it's the same thing. So using that kind of microcosm of like, hey, is it normal for a 6-year-old to be rambunctious and to not listen and to not have an attention span that is very long, or to not want help or take direction? Yes. Just like it's very normal for you as a small or an entrepreneur, a gym owner who's early, to be tired, aggravated by your members, to design systems and processes that don't work, to be bad at communicating. Like, is that normal? Yes, it's all normal. That's how it all works. And understanding that you only know what you've been taught. Mm-hmm. We all only know the things that we've been taught. And this is another thing that I had to get over, because with any number of things, right? You run a small business, and at some point you say, like, God, I should have known that.
Why?
Yeah,
why would
you know that? Has anybody ever told you that? And you're like, no. And I'm like, well, then there's no reason that you would have known that. Now that you know, we have a different discussion to be had. But like, let it go. You didn't know that. Nobody ever taught you. You didn't go to school to learn that. Nobody ever gave you that example. It's okay that you didn't know. And I think for a lot of us, myself included, we carry around that I should have known. And what it ends up resulting in is we don't get over our own shit and we don't fix the problem because we're so busy beating ourselves up about what we should have known, when that's completely inaccurate. It's actually ridiculous to think that you should have known that, if said otherwise. Be like, you mean that you should have known something that you've never been exposed to, that nobody ever told you about? That seems dumb, that you would think you need to know that. That's like if your kid's like mad at themselves. You're like, I can't drive, Dad. And I'm like, you've never sat in the front seat of a vehicle ever.
You're 4.
You're 4. No, you should not know how to drive. It's okay.
How to be a good teammate. Step 1, don't be a turd. Step 2, see step 1.
See step 1.
You've led all areas of life, from the gyms, the Navy, our team now. What does leadership look like to you today?
Leadership can be this big abstract idea. At first I would live with this. I think, in my experience, leadership is hard. Because I think, depending on what you're doing, depending on the size of the team, like the skill sets to be an effective leader morph over time. Think about, what kind of leader did you need to be when you first opened the affiliate and it was basically just you, versus, okay, now you have a gym that has 200 members and you have maybe some full-time staff, but a bunch of part-time staff. That's a different leader. Those are different skill sets. And I think for me, I think one thing that good leaders have, regardless of what stage they're in, is the ability to be clear. Or like be clear about your expectations. Be clear about what we're doing and where we're going. Even if imperfect, just be clear about it. Be like, hey, we're going this way. For the record, I have no idea if that is the right way, but we're going that way, right? So I think for me, I'm always trying to be as clear as possible. And I think about the best coaches I ever had. They all had two characteristics. They were clear about what they wanted, and they had high standards. So when I think about leadership, just try to do those two things. Be clear about what you want and hold the standards high. Because if you're clear about what you want, people will make less mistakes. And if you hold high standards, people will progress very fast. At which point, by doing those two things, you can quickly grow a really good team around you that also does both of those things. They're very clear about what needs to happen, what they need, what they want, and they also hold the standards high. Because, if you think about this idea of culture, standards, like, I think culture is what happens when you're not there, not what happens when you're there. Mm-hmm. Culture is, does the coaching staff do all of the things that you would want them to do if you were there when you're not there? And they do it unprompted because that's the way we do things here. We are a team that does this.
Otherwise, they're just afraid of you.
Then it's just fear.
It's right. Your kids.
Right. And I think the way to do that is be clear about what you want and keep the standard high. And that means you got to have hard conversations. And that means you got to tell people that they're not doing a good job, or you got to tell people that they are doing a good job. You got to reinforce the good behavior. And I think you're going to get it wrong probably more often than you get it right as a leader. Give yourself a little grace with regard to that and own your mistakes. I think there's a tremendous amount of benefit to, as a leader, saying, hey, I messed that up. That one's on me. Moving forward, here's what I'm going to try to do to correct this.
You use an example of changing someone's squat. I remember vividly you were in Austin. You're like, we were at one of the summits, and you're like, take your feet wider. I'm like, why? I'm like, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Right. And it's, as a leader, you have to be willing to say, like, I don't know, or, oh, that was wrong. You squatted worse.
Yeah. Go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be willing. I was talking to somebody about this at level 2 recently. I said, and it was a very specific participant, very nervous. And I said, hey, my feedback for you is like, just play. Like, be okay with playing with positions and telling people that you have no idea if this is going to work or not, because you don't. I was like, none of us do. The only way we find out is if we change it. We get some sort of feedback from the athlete, whether it be just visually or they tell us whether this was effective or not. But you don't have to know. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to play. Like, figure it out. Be curious about whether or not this is going to work or not. And if you don't know, then just say you don't know. Like, it's a weird little hidden trick, is if I just preface with what we're going to do by me saying, I have no idea if this is going to work. Well, now if it doesn't work, I'm off the hook for it didn't work because I said I didn't know but prior to starting.
Yeah, and if you're coaching class, you're a leader in that class.
Yeah.
And just think about, especially a newer coach, how much more buy-in you would get from the class if you're like, it's even standing at the whiteboard, like, hey, I'm really new at this. I'm going to give you my best. I'm going to make some mistakes. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, cool. Like, well, let's just have fun today.
Yeah, that's the whole, like, make sure that the things that you don't know comprise a smaller percentage of the things you talk about than the things that you do know.
Yeah.
And people get the circles inverted when they talk, like, and this is the whole... That was,
I think, the example.
Yeah, the whole fake it till you make it thing,
yeah.
Which is like, are you just going to, you see this all the time when they're talking about a subject that it doesn't take very long for you to come to the realization that they don't know what they're talking about because they use the term incorrectly or something like that. I'm not talking about misspeaks. I'm talking about, like, oh, you're clearly talking about something that you don't understand in this scenario.
Obvious to all of us.
Obvious to all of us, right? Instead of just saying, I don't really know about this. Let me just stick to what I do know and just focus on that. And if something comes up and I don't know, this is kind of goes back to the name guys, like use one of the 5 responses, which is I'll find out.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but I'll find out and I'll come back to you with an answer of some sort. So when I think about leadership, I think about like try to be the leader that people need at the time, not necessarily the leader that you think you should be, but be clear and hold the standards high. In my experience, because those are the people that I always wanted to follow. People want to follow people like that. Yeah.
Tell people the truth. They deserve the opportunity to get better. What's the hardest truth you've ever had to deliver as a leader?
I think the hardest, telling somebody that this is not for them.
Like seminar staff?
Whether it be seminar staff or a coach.
Or even affiliate
or
ownership.
even an affiliate owner.
We've done that.
That's the hardest one, is that you clearly see a passion for it, but you also clearly see that they either don't have the skill sets or life circumstances are going to dictate otherwise, or whatever. Insert whatever the thing that you observe is. It's really hard to tell somebody who's enthusiastic, who's passionate about something, like, hey, this is not for you. Like you're not going to be good at this, and that probably rub people. That will probably rub some people watching this the wrong way. But the reality is, like, coaching is not for everybody. Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Being a doctor is not for everybody. Like, nothing is for everybody. Okay, well, let's not pretend that it is then.
Well,
your job is not necessarily to string them along because it's convenient for you.
Or because you're being nice.
Or because you're being nice, because you're actually not being nice.
Yeah.
Like, you're preventing them from moving on and finding the thing that is for them much sooner.
Well, you say it'll rub people the wrong way, but you and I both have experiences with affiliate owners where we've said, close or sell.
Correct.
And
it's
like a sense of relief.
Yeah.
Well, and I could probably rattle off a half a dozen times where it's been like, and they either fall back in love with their own training, they continue to coach, but it's like this entrepreneurial thing. So you're doing them a disservice by not.
Yeah, or just telling somebody that because you've come to the conclusion, and maybe they are quasi coming to the conclusion, or they're starting to come to the conclusion that they're not willing to put in the work necessary to make it work. That's a really hard one, and I used to have that feeling with a bit more about probably a harsh tone to it, but now I think of it, I'm probably a little bit softer at this point, because I just know how hard it can be at times, and I don't judge people for it anymore. Like, oh, you're gonna have to put in an immense amount of work and you're not prepared to do that, and that's okay. Like, I'm not gonna judge you for that. But if you're not going to put in that work, you're not going to be successful, right? Whether it's to work the longer hours, or you're going to have to learn a new skill in order to make this thing work, and that's fine. But that's always a really tough one, because you don't want to be the person that crushes somebody's dreams, But I look at it like this: of like, if somebody's simply passionate about it, I'm like, that will wear out. Like, passion has a shelf life. It's just a little longer for CrossFitters because they're tough. But do they have the potential to be obsessive? Is what I'm looking for. An obsession for me, I've come to know it as like obsession has like a flavor of guilt to it in my experience. That's me speaking personally about obsession. But
What's
is
selfish?
Yeah, meaning obsession is offensive to many people. Obsession is weird. Obsession is not at all normal. It is actually probably the exact opposite of normal. Obsession comes with thoughts that you would be embarrassed to say out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Obsession is where the greats come from, but I don't think obsession is free. Right, it comes at a cost.
Well, any of the greats sacrificed something.
But maybe you don't have to go that far. But I think if you want to be successful in this game, I think there has to be a flavor of obsession, even if that obsession comes in spurts. But like at some point, you're going to have to kind of be a crazy person, and you're going to have to like not call your friends back for months and not go out ever and work 78 consecutive days without a day off. And people are going to be like, "You're a crazy person." And I'm like, well, that's obsession.
Yeah, in order to be exceptional, you have to be the exception.
Yeah. By default, I think people that are truly obsessed are willing to give up literally everything to achieve the goal. Meaning, it's not a great thought, and it actually like is embarrassing to say in certain scenarios. But like if you think about it, like somebody who's truly obsessed about something, like I'll use myself as an example. Like I love my wife and kids more than anything on planet Earth, but I also in the same breath would tell you, be like, I have had the thought, be like, this would be easier if I didn't have a wife and kids. Do I not want a wife and kids? That's not what I'm saying. But like that level of obsession causes those ideas to creep in.
Well, but then there's the next level where it's like, I'm leaving my wife and kids, right?
So right. That's in my mind, that's detrimental. Like, because that's not what I'm suggesting you do.
Value that they bring to you
Correct.
That allows you to be better at your thing.
Correct. And it's that level of obsession where the thought creeps in that then causes you to reprioritize or start to get rid of other things so that you don't have to get rid of your wife and kids.
Well, and you've said this, kids make you more efficient.
By default.
Right.
Well, for most people, but for some people it makes them less efficient, but yes.
Right, but like you said, if you left your two children, you may just become a complete mess.
Right.
And then not as good at your
craft. Listen, I think I would not give up the lessons learned of being a father for anything, because you'd be a complete idiot to suggest that there's components of that don't bring value to your team. Like it's a ridiculous statement.
Let me ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
What are you most proud of in the last 12 months?
I think I'm most proud of the shift that we just did internally as a team, as partners, because that had all the ingredients to not go well. But I don't think it could have gone smoother. And I credit that to everybody being dedicated to the outcome and to the team, and being emotionally mature to voice our emotions to each other coherently in a way that it just happened. And for anybody listening, like we had some role shifts, like Marcus and I shifted, and then you shifted, and it was like anytime you have like leadership changes like that, where it's not a demotion, but like by title, I guess it would be, but that's not the way I looked at it, nor do I think it's the way any of us looked at it. But that was one that stressed me out a lot going into that. But it was cool that we all independently came to the same conclusion. They're like, oh, we need to shift seats now, like in order to make this machine work. That's what I'm most proud of, because that was that's very rare in my mind.
What mistake took too long to correct?
This is kind of call it like a bundled thought, but thinking that just being passionate and caring a lot would make you successful, and not understanding that you don't want to ditch that, but there has to be a level of quant that accompanies that qualitative component of who you are. And a good balance of quantitative and qualitative, I think, is where you see the best live. And it took me a really long time to get past the facade that if you just care a lot, everything will work out. And because that's not true. You can care a lot and fail miserably.
What idea or book broke your brain?
Money is weird. Money's really weird.
That's the idea.
Well, so read like several different books. So like there's just two.
You posted, I remember.
Yeah, a couple different ones. Yeah. Like money's weird because everybody needs it. Most people have some sort of emotional baggage that accompanies it. But at the end of the day, nobody really truly wants it, because if they could get everything they had and could do it without money, almost everybody would opt for that.
Mm-hmm. That's weird. Yeah.
It's super weird if you think about it. And then pair that whole thought with the idea that almost no CrossFit affiliate owner gets into this business for the money. However, money is a necessity in order to thrive.
Yeah, and then they feel guilty if they start to get it.
So going back to everybody has baggage and stuff that comes with money. So it's one is not understanding both the psychological components of money, but also understanding the quantitative components of money, meaning like most people just don't understand money.
Mm-hmm. How much they need, all those things. Right?
How it works.
Yeah.
How does banking work? Like how does finance work? How does lending work? Most people have no idea about any of those things. And if you could get past that, you would still have to wrestle with the psychological components of the money, which is human beings by our very nature are irrational and dumb. At which point, even if you did understand money, look at Wall Street. Very smart people that absolutely understand money make asinine decisions on a daily basis because they have some sort of psychological belief about money. Meaning like, what is it? What's the saying he says in the book? It's like luck and risk are doppelgangers. Meaning like, mm-hmm. They're the same.
Right.
Like you would confuse one with the other, meaning like, oh, I'm doing this and it's working because I'm really smart. It's like, or you're really lucky. Hard to tell, right? Maybe you're really smart. Maybe you lived in a period of time where this worked out for you. But if I took you and you made those same series of decisions 50 years ago, you would have jumped off a building.
Right, even a year ago.
Right, you would have jumped off a building. So it's a really weird one, and it's really just kind of like look at money and like how people react to it and what is your relationship with money, and then understanding like how would I use it as a lever but like not get emotionally attached to it. So there's probably two books that I think The Psychology of Money is a great book. Mm-hmm. What's the other one? Another great book is it Financial Intelligence? I think is another really good book. It just kind of breaks down some basics on finances. The Millionaire Next Door is a fantastic book. It's a fantastic book. And it's not that it's like I've told everybody, like my wealth gauge is like just being able to go to dinner and pay the check and not ever look at the bill.
Yeah, when you posted that, I was like, oh, it's kind of the same. It's like just to be able to do the activities you want without stress.
Like I've got a couple nice things, but I would give them all away if I had to. I wouldn't really care. I don't want money. I want to not need money. So those are the ones that like when you ask a question like it breaks your brain is because you end up learning a lot of these things later in life.
And it's like this has influenced my life so much in the last 2 decades.
Right, and had like known a handful of things earlier, and like how can I give my kids or other people enough information on that without influencing them too much towards my experiences because my experiences are my experiences. And that brings psychological biases to how I look at money, versus somebody else's experience. So yeah, money's weird.
What hill are you willing to die on?
I might change my mind on this one later, but human beings are inherently pack animals. And I think that in the age of AI, and I think in the age of technology, how we work from home more often than not, it could lead you to the conclusion that human beings are healthy on their own. And I fundamentally disagree with that. I think human beings need connection. Even as much of as a recluse as you are, you still need and enjoy human connection.
I'm a one-man wolf pack.
And I think but I do think that you would go insane if you actually took that to the extreme.
100%. It's funny because anytime we're getting ready to travel, I'm like, I don't want to travel. And then I know I'm going to enjoy it when we're there. And I come back feeling refilled. Mm-hmm. And for me, I get at jiu-jitsu, the CrossFit community, it's like, so I joke that I'm alone, but it's more.
But the two things that you're super passionate about are very community-based.
Yes. And it's like, I joke, you take this like snapshot of me, which is like, I need an hour to chill at the end of the day.
Yeah.
By myself, and I'm good. And it's like, that's 4%.
Right. So I think the hill that I would be willing to die on is that like the ultimate hack is just doing a good job, particularly in the customer service business, which is, hey, you know what will trump all of the AI and automations and technology every day of the week? Calling that person.
We've had that discussion, yeah.
That it will always trump that. And I think that's the riddle that we all have to solve now. Right? That's like anybody who's operating a business or doing anything in this day and age, that's the riddle that we all have to solve. It's the thing that we're all wrestling with right now as human beings in society as technology progresses. Is technology is here. It's not going anywhere. I should probably learn to use it because in many ways it will enhance my life. But if it replaces the fundamental thing that makes us all human beings, then it is now a net negative for all of us. So I think it's like figuring out how do we use technology to our advantage to speed up or enhance human interactions. That's what I think is the Mount Everest of any business idea, which is like if you can create a business that's centered on using AI and technology to enhance and increase and improve human interactions, then I think you can win no matter what industry you're in.
We kick this entire thing off with the ripple effect. You can watch it. We have it up on our YouTube channel. We'll link it. Your presentation in Nashville to kick off one of our masterminds for clients. I want to loop back to that. So the ripple effect is based on, your father being your coach, mm-hmm. which now ripples down to everything you've touched. What are you doing to make sure your kids have that same ripple effect?
Kids are innately adept at understanding interactions, like much more so than I think people are aware of. Meaning, you can discipline your kids, but do it in a way that your kids still know that you love them. And when I think about being a parent or being a leader, think about at the end of the day, if push comes to shove, is just like, how does your team or your family or your kids or your spouse feel about you, or how do they think about you? And while there might be, he was hard on me, or sometimes he makes me upset, or God, he's really demanding, or all of that stuff, like at the end of the day, what I'm hoping is that when it's all said and done, that they always felt that, push all those things to the side, that like, oh, he really loved us. Like, yeah, he got on us about stuff, but at no point did they ever feel like dad didn't love them. Like, like, and same thing with the team. It's like, hey, you might really jump in somebody's ass about something, but they're like, but I do trust him to take care of me. And I think that, that's the true care thing, which is like, hey, have really high standards, but really, really love people a lot. And those things don't have to be at odds. I think they're actually enhanced when you really lean into both of them, which is, I care about you so much that I'm willing to be the one person to tell you the thing that nobody else is going to tell you, because I do love you. And this pains me to tell you that. Like, I'm not having a good time. But if I don't tell you, then you're not going to pass it. You're not going to pay it forward. I say this at the end of every seminar that I flow, is just like, at the end of the day, coach, affiliate owner, like, nobody's going to care what your back squat was. Nobody's going to care what your Fran time was. Nobody's going to give a shit if you went to the games. Nobody's going to care about any of that stuff. They're only going to care about the fact that the first day when they walked into the affiliate, scared out of their mind, and not knowing what this is about, to all these crazy people, that you greeted them and they immediately felt like this person was there to take care of them. And I'm like, hey, I'm really glad you're here. This is going to change your life, and you mean it. And all of that stuff that they're worried about goes away. And I think that's what I try to do. And I think I try to do that. You probably fail at it a lot, but I think that's what I try to do, is like, yeah, I'm going to be hard. Yes, I'm going to hold standards, but like, understand that doesn't mean that I don't love you. I do. And I'm doing this because I do love you. The second that I'm not doing that is when you should be worried.
Thank you. This has been great.
Yeah.
Getting to know Jason
Thanks.
Fernandez.
It's been fun. Appreciate it.